Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's meeting, which we call a hearing. Just welcome everybody. We have obviously staff members here, and we will also have consultants and online this morning too. We have one apology from Gary. Anyone else is here? Anybody need to leave early? That's good. No information, and pleased to accept apologies. Move Caleb, seconded Russell. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Any notification of urgent business? Any declarations of interest? Now move on to the confirmation of the minutes of our meeting on the 25th of October. Yeah, happy to move that. Sarah Jane and seconded Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, we'll now move into our item 7.1 is the Freedom Camping bylaw hearing. Now this bylaw has come about through a situation where we may not have a problem at the moment, but we don't have any rules around where people can freedom camp. At this point, they can freedom camp anywhere. So the purpose of this bylaw is to create some specific areas, but you can still freedom camp in other spaces. But these ones are where there might be some sensitivities and hence the restrictions, or some prohibited areas that are potentially being worked through today. So we've got 74 submissions. We haven't had any late submissions, and as it turns out, nobody's coming in to present the submission. So with that, I would ask that have a motion, please, that we that someone move that the information be received, please. Moved Caleb, seconded. Moved Dane, seconded Sue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. So now the process will be that we will work through the and consider the submissions to this proposal, and if they could be brought up on the screen if possible, please. I thought we'll just go page by page. Hopefully you've made some notes as you've read through. If there's anything that jumps out at you to comment or provide feedback. We just start at the top of the contents of our feedback and submissions page. So you can see there the pie charts, the people that did it, and then you have a summary of the submissions. Has anybody got any comments to raise out of summary? I think we can just move into the submissions if that's okay. Tish, yes, welcome Tish. That was the Tish is a consultant that obviously worked in this space for us. Okay, so submission, yeah, so that we can see there from the pie chart. Are there any comments? I don't think there's any that's just data. We'll just move on down to the submissions now. Thank you. Okay, any comments on the first couple of submissions? I think there was the feedback about appreciate signs being placed in the prohibited area campaign, which I think is potentially a fair recommendation. Has anyone got any comments? Just scrolling down to the second one with the New Zealand Lifestyle Camping Limited.
Do we need to go through this page by page procedure?
We do. We have to give the submitters some, yeah, and we'll go through reasons.
I just wonder whether we jumped anybody had any questions on items or.
Yeah, and I think we probably just need to, given that there's nobody coming in, we just need to give a little bit of attention. So we'll just scroll through. So if anybody's got any points to raise, or if they've asterisks, any questions?
Submission number 2.
Yeah.
No,
just keep, if there's anything.
No, that's fine.
Comments. We have read them all. It's generally there's some.
The only thing, Adrian, I will bring up is that some people, I think, thought that we were shutting down on all sorts of campaigns.
Yes.
So that came through quite a few times. Where am I going to camp? Where am I going to put my tent?
Yeah.
I think they sort of got this confused.
Yeah.
thing.
And I think one of the other things too is that this is only to do with council land, correct? So
Yes.
private land, you can't.
We have it's out of our scope.
No, there's a few people that commented around areas wanting to be
Correct.
cut off, but they're not actually council land to do with.
Yes. And like there was another bit of feedback for the Rapparapa Reserve.
Yes,
Gate
yeah,
at the
yeah.
entrance. Might be,
That could be quite valid, couldn't it?
yes. And just scrolling through, yeah, and like you said, there's definitely a feeling that and that's why I said at the start that you can freedom camp, but we're just putting some restrictions and prohibiting some areas, but the restrictions are so that you don't have a massive people freedom camping in some spaces, I think is the risk. So if we just scroll it through.
So on 3,
Yep.
on 3, and this is the Motor Caravan Association. We suggest council reconsiders its position on whether non-self-contained and freedom camp at Tana Street, particularly in light of the access orders.
Yep. So
I have been alerted to this issue and by some residents, and that has been a very emotive subject because they are camping there quite a few days and buses and various other things, which isn't really conducive to CBD.
And I think for clarification, the self-contained sticker, it's not going to happen overnight. This is something that's progressing over time, and there'll be a new sticker. So I guess it's a case of, is it a problem?
Tana Street is.
With these documents in the past, we've always had staff comments beside it, which is
Yes. Yeah, Sandra, would you like to answer that?
So just reminding you for the first time earlier this year when we came to you with your bylaws and everything, what council suggested they liked is being able to go through the submissions one by one, hear the submitted, and we've scheduled your deliberations for the 22nd of November. So we'll be bringing you all of those staff comments for that agenda, which is due in 2 days anyway. So you can,
that conversation.
yes,
And I could have highlighted that.
it just gives that time for the considerations following
that's great.
submissions before decision making.
And if because for any further questions that we can go back for more information.
Well, can I just go further on that comment? Is that this is from the national body of Motor Caravan Association, and they're the ones that say, should we consider positions where non self-contained can be accommodated? So
I guess that's a question that we go back to for our deliberations.
Yep.
Will there be anything that's not self-contained in
Oh,
the future, Bruce? You're a motor
well,
caravan,
no, there are lots of people that are
sitting in a van sort of thing.
there are a lot of people that are wanting to just sleep in a van with nothing, and those that have got porta potties now are not going to be considered self-contained. All right, so those ones that were juices and what have you that had a porta potty that they were shoved in the back and never used anyway. They were self-contained but never used. All right.
But if we go back to non-self-contained, then it's a waste of time doing policy, really.
I think the point here is that we are restricting certain areas. So if somebody wishes to freedom camp there and they're not self-contained, somebody will have to report them.
And then you're into the compliance type issues. All right. But what I'm getting at is, if the Motor Caravan Association are saying, why aren't you allowing some discretion, right, that they're worth listening to.
So it's maybe something we can consider.
Because part of that wasn't that we've got very few 24-hour toilets, wasn't that?
Correct.
That's part of the issue around us being able.
That's right. Yeah.
Non-self-contained.
So consider that in our deliberations as to what that might look like. So we'll just flag that as for a comment. Thank you. Moving through, any other?
Just to comment on, I guess number 16 is our
Yep.
which about homeless people, but they don't, if they're from this area, they don't fall into this category. They're separate from it anyway, aren't they? So I guess that's
Same with homeless. Yeah.
Yeah.
homeless.
they're
Yeah,
not- yeah.
and the freedom camper policy,
Yeah.
separate. So
And there are a few, like there's some here, like supporting, very supportive, like with Te Aroha Domain. Obviously, its parking's very limited. And then there was obviously in the, like you said before, Dane, about golf clubs. We don't own that property, so it is outside the scope of our, there was one submission number 13, it's outside the scope of our bylaw.
That's the golf club.
Number
Yep.
4.
Yep.
Number 4, other, a bush gate at the entrance to Raparapu. Is that what somebody mentioned it earlier, I think? Yeah. Who's going to open and close it?
Yeah, so that's something to add into our deliberations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further feedback? Just scrolling on down. So keep scrolling.
Without.
Are you on any of those? Yep.
Number 5, I was
Yep.
talking
Number
about.
5. Yep.
Do we have to dig a little bit?
Yes, so that's one of the ones that I think we proposed to prohibit.
I was going to say there is, yeah.
That's
that's
prohibited.
prohibited,
So there was clear support for that to be area to be prohibited. As much as it's a beautiful area, it hasn't been respected. And that's where, well, Kevin, you've got your light on, sorry.
I'm just going to say there's a theme running through here about policing these things and how we're going to do it, because it's all very well making a rule, but if we're not going to have someone out there doing anything about it, are we relying on the community to report the fact that they've been there for longer than 2 days and then doing something about it?
Is there potential to work with the community patrol in that space?
Media patrol is not allowed to confront anybody.
No.
They're not allowed to get out of their
No.
vehicles.
No, that not, but they could say that there's X number of vehicles in this car park on this night, and if I don't know, but you have different people on, so you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
I think
they were.
one of the submitters is a community patrol person and is trying to make a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on that note, that's a good point here. But I mean, it's there to enforce if there is a problem going forward,
Yeah.
isn't there? I mean, if someone says 4 nights instead of 3, I mean, it's not, the world's not going to end. But if they're a constant nuisance, we'll know very quickly through the public, I think. And then we've got the team to enforce it, rather than having someone like TCDC driving around all the time. And I don't think we need to have that personally, but we'll find out.
But we can consider that in our
There's people
deliberations.
that, I mean, I know in Hannah Street, and I was working down in Silver, probably remember this as well. People would park in the car park, but they would start hanging washing lines in between
Yes.
trees and things, and that's just public nuisance. That really is. That's taking the mickey.
They weren't camping though, they were there for the day, did their laundry, hung it up, moved on. So, they weren't camping as such.
So let's just put that into our deliberation space around what it looks like, and because obviously there is some play for enforcement.
So number 15 says making your district clear prohibition. Sorry, making your district-wide restrictions and more clear prohibitions. Please ensure you justify all these by referring to section 11. All right,
Which we did.
which we did. All right.
That's to protect. Those are those things. That's what section 11 is about. It's
Which
an
is
consideration.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's again consulting with Mana Whenua and their sensitive sites as well. So so we have to keep moving on from that one. Obviously there was a comment about homelessness, which we know that doesn't come into this. Has anybody made any more comments scrolling down?
Number 8, 2 instead of 4. Have question before in our minds. I know, but should we, when you
So
read
we
it that
can,
way,
we can put that down too as a deliberation of,
again, just a question
Yeah.
that we're comfortable.
consider.
Yeah.
Consider. And what the benefits might be. And I guess the thing is that they can stay anywhere. These are just areas that we're limiting within the towns. There'll be other spaces that they can park on the side of the road. It's perfectly legal for them to do that. This is just to create some restrictions in sensitive, or what is deemed to be sensitive areas with section 11.
Number 8 also makes the point about the fact that a lot of these motorhomes have pets. They need to comply with the dogs on leash scenario.
Yeah, so that's the other side of the bylaws around being registered.
Yeah, 14 was a really problematic case.
Yeah, and it sort of highlighted that, and that wasn't necessarily freedom camping, was it? No. So just scrolling on through, yeah, that referred to 14. If we carry on,
I'll just bring it back to number 13.
sure.
Just to clarify for me,
Pop your light on, thanks, Pete.
so if I have a camper, and I can pull up on the side of any public road and camp. So for number 13, these people live in Carnoustie Place. That's just unfortunate that campers want to park there and camp. They've got to put up with that inconvenience.
It's they live on Carnoustie Place, but they back onto the golf club car park. So the golf club is the owner of that land. So it's their scope. So there will be, and there are camper van associations where they do rounds of golf and they visit various golf clubs. And so that is not in our scope.
Can I just add something to that? So we've had some recent discussions as of very late yesterday afternoon with Manai, who's been working with an MP on terms of that Warrensville Golf Club. It appears as if a portion of it might be on road reserve. So we're just working through that and we'll bring you through the detail in your deliberation. So we may need to try and do a few site assessments there if some of it is on council land. So we're just working through the detail of that one. Sorry, it only came in very late yesterday afternoon.
So potentially the car park, part of the car park, because there is road reserve further down, but as part of the car park, actually.
We knew that.
Yeah, no, we'll clarify it. So that's something to clarify. Yep, perfect, thank you. So scrolling on through, carry on down. Is there any feedback? Anybody written anything? Those following one?
So I'm going to
take
a rather largely to number 52.
Oh, we haven't got there yet. Can we just carry on, get through
Yeah,
before we get to 52?
Yeah,
Because we're sort of around the 20s.
let's
We're
logically work through.
work through. So are there any comments? Just keep scrolling. Thanks, Steph. Anybody got any more comments through before 52? Is anyone, if we keep scrolling down? Obviously number 23, if anybody's before that. There was that comment about the not
People
necessarily fully self-contained. So we've taken that on board. Consider.
responsible camper rather than responsible.
Just the
Caravan Association has gone against water bodies.
yes.
That's not considered to be. That's not considered to be
Self-contained.
self-contained anymore.
Yeah. So it's just that clarification that we'll see in our deliberations. Just going to number 27, just around, is it possible that all large car parks at Warring Falls may be occupied by vehicles staying up to 4 days each with no vacant large car parks left for day trippers to use? I think there's more spaces than that, isn't there?
There's 11 specifically large vehicle car parks. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many car parks there are, but there's a lot throughout the Warring Falls car park.
Yeah, but we weren't allowing 11 to stay there, were we? Just because that was in our. I think that's the point here, is that we're not using all the designated parks. So that's just verifying that.
So are we creating an issue by having a designated number of car parks? Imagine if I'm in camper number 7 and I turn up at Warring Falls,
You probably say.
I will just say,
Potentially the catch here with the Warring Falls is there is access through to the land next door, that as long as that is kept free of probably overnighters. I think let's just see, you know, like, I think we don't need to take to it with a sleep
No,
camera.
but I guess the other thing too, though, is you could drive 500 metres down the road and park on the side of the road. So you drive 100 metres down the road and park on the side of the road.
Yeah, I think the thing will be is if someone deems it that it's offensive, that you know, if it becomes a problem, let's, you know, we haven't had a problem with freedom camping as broad brush. This is just giving us an opportunity if it does grow.
Apologies, it is 11 vehicles we would be allowing up to at the Wairu.
Okay, so let's consider that. Okay, let's just consider that one as a deliberation.
It's still not a lot of parks compared to how many there are.
Yeah.
But at least we can deliberate. We're just receiving these submissions, the comments to follow through. Person with the ambassador thing was quite interesting, quite a cool idea. I don't know what scope we would have around having local ambassadors that, you know, they talk about the person thanking them that they're camping responsibly and had small items and separate pellet and sunscreen. But I think that's yeah, like is there an interest in that one?
Struggle to get ambassadors for the MPDC park, so I don't see how they'll get ambassadors to drive around it.
Exactly. Dane, did you have another comment?
I see one on 37. Is that too far off now?
34, right? Says I think Murray Oaks would be a good option. Right now, a couple have also said there doesn't seem to be a lot in the Morrinsville area. So whether we revisit Murray, the point is,
have we revisited that?
There's not. There's a parking on the grass here for Murray Oaks, wouldn't they be?
No, it's posted off all the way around that, but I think you might get some allocated parks where there is a little bit of room.
The point here is while there doesn't seem to be many designated spaces in Morrinsville, it's our restriction and prohibited spaces that we're focusing on. People can still park on the side of the road and freedom camp. It's not that these are the only places you're allowed to freedom camp. But I guess it's if there's providing a space, and they could park on the side of the road of Murray Oaks, could they not?
Yeah.
On the main highway.
No, on the other side.
Because that's what I was talking about with the grass, because you've got the bollards, but it's only grass.
So people could park there.
Yeah, they could, but they could.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously still have to comply with safety of where they can park, and any other bylaws relevant. But yeah, what we're doing is it's permissive unless we're prohibiting it.
Yeah.
I'm really looking at it as if you go back to people, what do you tell
Surf or something new.
As somebody who's slept in a camper van for sometimes, it's not ideal parking
on your home.
most roads.
But on the Murray Oaks one, not on the highway, over on the side road, there is a grass verge there. If you wanted to pull over, you could camp there. Self-contained, you could camp there.
Yeah.
So that when we go back to the submitters, this is a guide for where we're restricting and prohibiting, not there are plenty of spaces on road reserve where they are allowed.
They can camp right next to Murray Oaks on the verge of the road. They're just not in the
reserve.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we have.
And also attached to your report is that summary of the site assessment that we did, and Murray Oaks was actually one of the highest ranking ones, simply because of the large number of the historically protected oak trees elevated that significantly.
The ideal.
And if we had a good one, we've lost a few lately.
We've seen what happened.
Right, carry on.
So my question on 37 was he mentions that with the recreational reserve, I think we've zoned that as no camping now anyway. There is a rugby club across which you can't do anything about, but when he's talking about childcare and things like that and parking outside of it, do we take is there anything extra that we do around childcare centres? Like, should we be changing something around those to keep them away from that area? I mean, some of the things that he described there is not ideal when you're trying to run one.
So if you visualise a daycare, you park and you drive in the door. The play area is usually on the other side of the facility, from my experience of daycare. And I'm pretty sure if you drove past this one, that's what you would see. Am I correct? So it's, yeah, they won't be seeing kids playing because you're road. They're not playing on by the their play area isn't by the road, it's on the other side of the.
Yeah, so I guess the reply to that one is really by shutting off the reserve, we've done as much as we can do to try and stop people from camping.
Any other feedback? I think there were a few sort of said about the suitability of Burwood Road. Well, we're not saying they can't camp at Burwood Road. We're just saying that we're limiting Hetana Street and the car park at Polwood. Okay, carrying on through. We've moved on from 37. Any more comments down? I guess that like it was mentioned earlier, there are people here that are saying that we're making laws and stopping freedom camping when it's not the case. We're just reiterating this is restricted and prohibited in some areas. And again, we've got golf clubs, we've got like in Matamata, the Matamata Club and the RSA, it's all on private land. So people can actually camp there as well. Yeah, and you have your own rules. So, you know, we're not prohibiting freedom camping in our district as such. And I guess it's that perception around Morrinsville that we've only allowed for 6, but that's the 6 that we've in a restricted space. Again, able to go anywhere else. Yeah. There was a question, number 43, around the size, you know, your RVs, your big 9-metre buses. Yes, they're a minority. I guess if you had a heap of them, then you might be.
It's not a minority, but it's their choice.
Having
had a 9-metre boat, you find places to park.
You find places of the size. We're not restricting. I think the key here is the places that we're limiting are.
No, I think people are saying that if we're allowing freedom camping, that we should be ensuring there is sufficient room for them, and that's not what we're doing. We're just
for these restricted ones, but they could park elsewhere.
Yes.
Okay, continuing on through. Anything in the 40s? 40 to 50?
Yeah, 48.
Yes.
So that was Waterworks Road in a reserve. So potentially changing between the off season and on and in season.
That's what they've asked. So I actually asked a question around the Chimera mountain bike group, and they were asked for submissions, they didn't actually submit on it, so we didn't receive any submissions. And I guess, you know, dogs again in rural areas have been placed in the summer, but I guess it provides its own security too, potentially. I guess the other challenges with the car park is how many people might choose to stay up there, and by having that may be a wait and see approach. I don't know how many people have stayed up there in the past because they would have, but we're allowing it. But the car park, you know, like in the summertime, it is the challenge around, is it busiest in the weekend? Are people there all day? And then have they got events where, yeah, but then some of their people might camp there too for the weekend. So let's not overthink it. Perhaps.
They might if they get a new car park.
That's right. So let's, yeah, and that's the thing there is, but they didn't provide us with any feedback, and they're the people that are directly affected. Russell, sorry.
I think it had been an issue that Mira and Mountain Bike Club would put a submission in, so it's obviously not an issue to them.
It hasn't been.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you. And then there was one where they talked about New Plymouth having submission number 49. New Plymouth have adopted a designated marked parking area for freedom camping. And there were a couple of spaces, but they've got beach, you know, they've got sea reserves. So I guess that's where those spaces are being identified, I think was and the answer that I got. That
one there, New Plymouth have adopted designated for freedom for compliant and non-compliant, and this gets back to that comment I made further previously about saying whether they had to be compliant.
And in this case, I think there were 2 places.
Right on the beach.
Yeah, it's 2,
right on the beach.
and it's on the beach.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah. So again, we can consider it in our deliberations whether that is at the end of the day, we're not stopping people from freedom camping self-contained. Probably better to have some services around. But, carrying on through into the 50s, any comments through there? Again, I think there's a misunderstanding around our prohibited and restricted areas, that we're not actually outlawing freedom camping. And I think that was something that I believe when I was talking to you, Sandra, that when you spoke with people face to face, that was something that was the initial impression, perception that they had, but once it was explained. So I think we're going to have to make sure that when in our deliberations, when we do come to our decision around how we publicise this, so that people have confidence that we're not stopping camping. Any other comments going down?
Well, 56 again brings that issue of where there are toilets available. Like, you know, I think it's a valid thing that we should be considering.
Not all of them are open 24 hours, though, are they? So it's again in those deliberations of where.
In the deliberation should be if there are 24-hour toilets available, should we be restricting it to the new terminology of self-contained?
So I can just give you a reminder of what we discussed when we did our draft. So we currently have 3 toilets throughout the district that are open 24/7. Todd, feel free to jump in if I get anything wrong. So Studholme Street in Warrensville, so when you count down car park, Herod Street here in Te Araha, which is behind that gate within the playground, and Hatana Street at Matamata is just the unisex one on the, as you walk into the female one to the right hand side. So those are our 3 current 24-hour operation toilets. So I mean, you don't have to provide them there, but it obviously makes the most sense. But whether any of those 3 sites are suitable is up to council discussion.
Also need to discuss the porta potty thing.
Yes, that's in our deliberations. Yep.
Yeah, it's of course the NZ Motor Caravan Association don't certify that or won't certify that after 2 years. I think it's 2 years. Yeah, but we know there may be another association come up that's the porta potty Motor Caravan Association, and they'll certify them or something. But no, because I mean it says responsible campers, not responsible vehicle.
No. The fact is that the freedom camping Act does not allow that down south.
At the moment, we currently have no bylaw for NPDC, so we are abiding by the legislation, which does not allow it. So legislation gives council the ability to allow it in certain areas.
That's the issue.
So that's the key. So for us, for our deliberations, to have a think about that through this process.
Most of the buses have cassette toilets anyway, and they empty them exactly the same way as a porta potty would be emptied. So it's
So
can I? The real difference is that the cassette ones that they can deem self-contained are readily accessible when you're in the vehicle. The porta potties are generally the ones that are tucked away underneath the seats and what have you, and they don't use them to the same extent.
Yeah, they're not in a cubicle or available.
good discussion.
Right, so that'll be a discussion that we can consider. Obviously, the theory and the practicality of it all. Any comments going down through the 50s into the 60s? 57? Has anyone got comments? Yeah, 57. Thank you, Jane, for Caleb's comments. Or 52 was it? 52 or 57?
52 is about 4 bodies.
No, I think Councillor Tappin's made the point I was going to make, is we need to be considering porta potties, cassette style porta potties in our deliberations, but further, don't need to apologise, Kevin.
Good. Thank you. We'll carry on through 50s into the 60s.
62 comes under homeless, doesn't it?
It's not really freedom camping, it is. And I guess the thing is around camping grounds, and we do have places where people can camp, so they have access to cooking facilities and showers and toilets. So, you know, people's choice whether they go there.
Number 66, Mr. Harris. I'm guessing he's from Bar and Harris Barristers.
No, that's not fair. No, surveys. It's not.
Survey.
No, you're making a general assumption there that I don't think is accurate.
So get me.
He's from Matamata, but not Bar and Harris. No.
His comment is these penalties must be, quote, real, unquote.
Mm.
There might be some discretion to reduce or minimize penalties, but constant reckless, the worst of the offending to be penalized in a meaningful way. How would we make that work?
Are you talking in terms of the dollar value of the penalties?
And how would we enforce, or how would we define the worst offences, and then how would we enforce those definitions?
So the legislation tells you exactly what you can fine and what for. That's what you follow.
Are you talking more about like the policing of it?
The enforcing of it.
Yeah.
So just going on what is written here, I think what I'm reading is this person is under the impression that these penalties aren't real. These are just imaginary fines, imaginary.
That won't be enforced.
Yeah, that it's just going to be colour coast on a piece of paper, but not actually anything that can be done.
I guess the conversation we've had around bringing in this bylaw is we could have chosen not to have brought in the bylaw and have no opportunity to enforce. With this, we're bringing in the bylaw because we haven't been like Queenstown. Your tourist hotspots are where people go do a lot of freedom camping. Around here probably isn't to the same extent. There will be some, but I think the thing is let's just have this in place so that if we do need to potentially bring in some enforcement, that's the conversation. That's when it may be employment. Well, and we have staff that are in the enforcement space now that, you know, if there's a report made and a complaint, well, they can go and have a look.
I would be interested to hear if we ever have had a problem, to be quite honest. I don't think we have.
Yeah.
Even with our level of tourism going up, I don't ever think there was an issue. And it's the people that the travellers are not the problem anyway. It's the other people that are kind of semi-homeless, just travelling around, that probably is more the issue.
Yeah, and the thing is, we don't want to be unwelcoming. You know, if they're coming and spending money in our communities and visiting what we have to offer.
Yeah.
You know, is an extra night really going to do any harm unless there's somebody wanting to come and park there? You know, we haven't reached that point, but we're putting this here so that if it does grow, then we have an opportunity. It's having the tools in the toolbox.
And just to add, we have for your deliberations report popped in there the number of comments that we've had about freedom camping over the past, I think it was 4 or 5 financial years. It was quite minimal.
Yeah. We didn't adopt the bylaw, would it affect our motorhome friendly town status?
I don't think so, because they can camp anywhere. I think the point of this is to consider the residents that we were restricting and limiting, and again with the mana whenua around the potential people camping on sensitive sites that people aren't aware of. If we got that, that's sort of the aim of this.
Nothing will change. We just have some rules in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going with the sledgehammer.
No. And on that note, I mean, number 68, since we're there, Denise Williams, is she the community patrol? Okay. But it's the drug dealing thing. When she's saying, hey, we need to enforce stuff, I don't think that's what we're enforcing. I think she needs to be encouraged to talk to the local constabulary, to be fair, about that.
They got themselves very concerned about that.
Yeah, so
And by
they
limiting,
wouldn't be our enforcement people.
and at the moment we have no rules to limit. So at the moment they could be there the whole time. Whereas we're limiting, and if there is some antisocial behaviour going on, then it becomes a policing matter.
Still number 70 there and talking about tenting and things, and obviously that follows on from the not being self-contained. It'd be interesting, I guess, to know, like Morrinsville to me, it's my opinion, I guess, and I don't know about the other two areas, but it's not really a town that's set up for tenting. I mean, there's not really much there to see. If you've got to be near to a toilet, you're going to have a. No, I mean,
we know what you mean.
It's not a destination.
It's not a beach there.
No, it's not.
Yeah, or a river.
Yeah.
You know, to stop in for a couple of days and have a look around the town in a camper van makes perfect sense. But you know, to me to go and put up a tent,
Yeah.
and you know, you're doing that for a few days at least. You're kind of stuck there. It doesn't kind of, you know, where we've got the opportunities to use toilets, you're not going to be able to pitch a tent in a car park. That's pretty hard work. So well, you know, I take the point of, you know, of going and tenting. You know, I just think that there's better areas around the place that are more destinations that are much more the type. I mean, we go tenting for holidays. We'll go to the dock site and
Yeah,
we camp there and things, and you know, next to that. So. Well, I take the point around the tents. I just don't think that we're probably really a destination for that type of a thing. Where, you know, so I guess that needs to be taken into account when we look at the freedom police and the self-contained type of things as well. It's not trying to exclude tenting. It's just that the practicalities of things, I guess, it probably doesn't kind of line up with our area, in my opinion.
And I think it's kind of not on
No.
Yeah, and I guess that go, Caleb.
Surely we have campgrounds in our district.
We have, and that's
So
the thing.
quite why you'd want to pitch a tent in central Morrinsville. I can't imagine Canada Street is a tenting location of choice. So
Canada's lovely this week.
But I guess this is the reality. People not wanting to pay a business when we do have camping facilities and cabins and places where they can pitch the tent and have pools, hot pools to swim in.
and all the amenities they could ever need are there.
Yeah.
And it just makes no I think with my co-counsellor said that this is just out of the scope now.
So we just need to provide a heated covered pool at Morrinsville, and then we'll.
Keep on.
I think off the back of that too is that, you know, if people have gone on hard times and they are staying in tents, then they are exempt from this rule.
Yeah,
If they're
they are,
local
yeah.
anyway, you know. So
And like there are people that travel and they're looking for somewhere to pitch their tent. I had that happen a few years ago, a young guy from Belgium, and I said, look, I took him home and go, he had bed for a few nights and free Wi-Fi, but that's, you know, that's what you do with it, you know, like, and we just put him out on the highway and he carried on his journey a few days later. It was great having someone, that's what Kiwis do, isn't it? You know, some of us have front paddocks where if they want to, or a lawn, we can, they don't have to park out in the public space, you know, some of us are actually quite open to welcoming tourists in our community. Right, so we'll move down into the comments from just as noted from Facebook.
Can I make a comment
Sure.
about Facebook? I don't actually read them. This because I think if they wanted to make a submission, they should have. This is just Facebook chat. That's all from me.
And it wasn't significant.
No, I would be very honest. I didn't read them.
Just for our information.
Yeah.
I was going to make that comment too, and it's the fact that, you know, people are arguing on there. You don't really need to read that.
It's not like Facebook.
No, right? But yeah. So has anybody got any further comments they wish to add that for our deliberations to direct staff to for us to consider?
Just that, is it 73? The lovely typewritten
They are big.
Oh, yeah.
submission. Again, there seems to be confusion about the freedom camping, and then it doesn't include the homeless people situation.
Yeah, so I think this is in our deliberations, the points that we need to raise and go from there. So there is Peter.
Just to back to Waterworks Road, is that going to be a restricted area? The tomato
It
camping?
was two.
Two parts, okay. It seems.
Well, it's potential. We can deliberate. Yeah, you can add that into our deliberation.
and you can still drive
Lovely, isn't it?
200 metres down the road and park on the side of the road.
Probably
You've just got to take that in context with the
safest place.
At the end of the day, we're providing a few spaces that will be considered safe for them to stay. And again, that you talk about somewhere to go. Well, that's actually quite a good spot, isn't it? from recreational perspective. Right, any other comments to make?
Can I just add in one thing, just because I think it might help with some of the comments about the non-self-contained ahead of the deliberations. Council are more than welcome to consider having a few areas across the district that are non-self-contained. It would be self-contained or non-self-contained. I think the discussion around what kind of non-self-contained toilet can't come into this, because this would be far too hard to police.
Yes.
So it's either self-contained or not. Just to throw that out there, we couldn't say certain types of toilets, but not porta potties. It would be self-contained or not. Just wanted to throw that out there before we get into deliberations.
Thank you. Good point to raise. Right. So we'll move on to the recommendations then. If there's no further comment from the submissions, I think it's great that there were 74 submissions for this bylaw, and I'd like to thank staff for their effort in connecting with the community and seeking the feedback. I think there was some good engagement. Was there positive face-to-face engagement? I can see with the smiles and the Olivia's face, you know, it was good. There were other things you were talking about, but I think it was a really good way of connecting with the community to build understanding around what the purpose of this bylaw is. So now if we move to the recommendations, number 4, council considers all submissions received. And number 5, that council request any further information or clarification. I think there's a few things there that we've asked for during we're going through the submissions. And for clarification required prior to the meeting on the 22nd for the deliberations and adoption of the Freedom Camping bylaw. And that number 6, council staff be authorised to make any minor amendments needed prior to the council meeting on the 22nd of November 2023 for the deliberations and adoption of the Freedom Camping bylaw. But someone be happy to move that. Thank you, Councillor Kevin Tippin, and I'll go with the seconder of Bruce Dewhurst. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. I will now even hearing and meeting closed. And we will break for morning tea. Live stream. Thank you, everyone. We're still live streaming.